So this is the second part of my frontline update. I split it into two because I did an extra bit of an analysis and extra analyses along the way. Uh, sorry, not sorry. Here is the second part that is the southern front line and Kherson. But obviously, you need to watch both parts together to make it make sense. Reason I cut it up into two is because when you've got a 45-minute video, it's just too unwieldy. And actually, people don't watch things at 45-minute long. So I split it into two in the hope that it becomes more consumable, I guess. Anyway, sorry about that. Here it is. So now let's get on to this Donetsk part of the Donetsk region, and the ISW says limited operations taking place. Russian sources claim that Russian forces repelled Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups around Volodymyrivka, which is here, just to the east of Mikilska. So there's still operations taking place there. Okay, as we move to the west, we're coming to the Velika Novosilka sector, and there's not a crazy amount of news coming out, to be honest. Although apparently there's quite a lot of activity. So Russian channels were reporting big fights in this area, and it came out this morning from Null Reports, which is the area to the south of Velika Novosilka. Quote from a Russian source: "The enemy went on a large-scale offensive in the area of Urizhny. Prior to the attack, they conducted a massive artillery preparation. There's a big fight going on." So this is coming down this river, the course of this river, but you've got lower ground, Urizhny, Staromairsky. There's activity around there. Big attack possibly on Urizhny. If I'm going to actually see if I can go into 3D here to see actually if there you can see much of a difference in height. I don't know if that you can really. It's not. It's a very flat region anyway. There are you are going uphill as you come to the west, but it's not hugely significant. Not in a way it is in other places that we've seen. But this is higher ground here, and this is what the Ukrainians wanted, advances along. Let's come out of there now. So you can't really see it, but as you would expect, rivers will take the lower ground water, will carve out lower ground. So this is naturally going to be higher ground. It's just not massively higher than surrounding areas. So there is activity taking place there, just not a great amount of detail. I'll keep my eyes peeled about that area. And then we heard discussion about Haliapale, the Russians making gains in the Haliapale area. We heard from, was it Null Reports or one other? Well, actually, Surat Maps indicates that north of Marfapil, the Russians have made gains there. So we'll go back to Surat Maps to see what they have to say about this. The Russian army have reactivated the Haliapale sector axis and advanced north of Marfapil and the adjacent dachas. So the Russians are making some gains there, which is again really interesting. What are their intentions? Are they trying to genuinely take like Haliapale, or trying to take this land for its intrinsic value, or is this just a case of making the Ukrainians think twice to really put a spanner in the works of their counter offensive? And I think it would be the latter, but it's certainly given them stuff to think about. So now let's move to the west, and we come on to Robotna. Now, quite a lot of discussion on Robotna yesterday. Again, I'm hearing nothing really out of this area of any great detail, just a lot of general stuff. So during the press conference, General Ushalovich reported that Ukrainian troops advanced 1.7 kilometers in the Melitopol direction. Ukrainian units are advancing in the conditions of dense mining by the enemy of the approaches to their positions and powerful fire influence. So that happened in the last week, though. So that is 1.7 kilometers in a week, which is about 250 meters a day. So let's put that here. Let's say 1.7. So that's the amount of distance that they have advanced in a week. Now, if we turn on the deep state map, that's what they've taken in sort of month and a half, it is just tough going. And when you hear about them laying 400 mines in 2 hours in the Bakhmut area, this is going to be partly why they are struggling to take serious amounts of ground quickly. It's no lightning thunder road counteroffensive this, and it just can't be. Okay, Ukrainian forces are now training to remove landmines with drone-dropped grenades, as seen here at a training range. A Ukrainian quadcopter drops a NATO standard M67 grenade into a anti-tank mine vehicle mine, a TM62, clearing the local area. So they are now training on this. So we were talking yesterday, so let's do some brainstorming about how to clear these fields for the mines. We know they can do this anyway with drones, but now they're officially training to do mine clearing using IEDs dropped from drones. So I guess you'll see a lot more of this taking place. They'll spot drones, try and drop them in the right place, and clear pathways through using drones. But Russian drones, and this is in the area, are dropping grenades to burn wheat fields. I mean, this is literally scorch earth tactics. So this is what the Russians are doing, I presume, thinking, well, we may lose this area, so we might as well just burn a lot of it. We're not gonna be able to harvest this wheat, so you're not gonna have it, which then affects global wheat supply and global wheat prices, and is a real challenge. Yeah, so thanks for that, Russia. Right, what else can I say about this area? The Ukrainians are doing a lot of work behind the lines still. Russian forces shelling the Ukrainian army. So there's a lot of equipment being hit. This is actually the in the Highlight axis we were just talking about, the Russians shelling the Ukrainians with TOS-1 here. So TOS-1 multiple launch rocket systems. These are thermobaric munitions, and this can be seen in the area. So let's go and put this on a map. Shelling with TOS-1 to the left of Drozhnyanka, which is coming back to here. So this is the Russian gains around Highlight, but also using TOS-1 around this area there. If we go back to that, and then also, yeah, around Drozhnyanka, same sort of place, just to the right. So here and here, they're using TOS-1 to hammer the Ukrainians. So obviously that'll be a piece of kit that Ukrainians will be wanting to take out themselves. Right, then we'll go to P-Star 1-1 saying Ukrainian soldiers on the ground report that Russian frontline positions are occupied with Russian Marines instead of Mobics or Z-Storm troops. It does not appear to be a normal rotation, but it is done out of necessity. About a week ago, I translated a post about Russian reserves, not much left. But this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the video. Yesterday, a Russian mill blogger, also in my feed, wrote that the slow grinding of Russian troops by Ukrainian counteroffensive is bearing fruit. And this is the claim, and I think I reported this in my news piece this morning, that there are some Russians, mill bloggers, claiming that the Zaporizhia counteroffensive is working. It's just a slow grinding offensive, but it is actually churning up the Russian defenses. He advised against fixating on Leopard tank losses because it hides the true situation of the Russian forces at the front. Stop counting Bradleys and Leopards and think about the bigger picture. And this would be the same for Western analysts, myself included. It's like not concentrating on how slow necessarily things are happening in each individual place and saying, well, I'm not hearing about Robotyne, I'm not hearing about Velika Novoselka. Goodness me, the Russians are making some gains here. But it's the bigger picture. Okay, what's happening with the force quality and force concentration in all of these defenses? And once they are fully ground down, then what happens? Yes, it may be trying to find out the positives, but this is really what is going on. And if some Russian sources are saying this as well, then it's probably worth taking note. Here we're moving to the west. So not well. Let's go to the ISW before we do that, just in case there are other things to mention. So they say in a Novodanilivka and Malotokmachka area, where we're talking about just now, around Robotyne, the Ukrainians have been partially successful. Just to remind you, what I said about this area is that the Ukrainians have I suggested yesterday, concluded yesterday, that they have definitely breached the Russian major trench lines, the first line of proper trenches in the Robotna area, and there was Russian video evidence of that that I sort of brought into defend that conclusion. So I think that's definitely happened. They are having success around here, but again, operational security, not hearing a lot about it at the moment. So this is the ISW saying there's partial success. Um, and then, yeah, northeast of Robotna, Russian MOD claimed that they were repelling attacks, Ukrainian attacks near there, as they would say, of course. So, yeah, that is the activity taking place there. So we're now going to just zoom out, and go to the west, along a little bit to this area where the Ukrainians are again making very slow progress. But the question is, are they still achieving objectives, fixing and attriting Russian troops? So here we have some footage of the Ukrainian army shelling the Russian forces in the village of Zerebianki. I don't want to play that to you. It's just basically, trench lines getting absolutely hammered. And this has been neatly geolocated to this tree line. I'm going to show you. Basically, they've got lots of dating to show here. This is the Barracuda source to show. If I zoom into Piatichaki and then zoom into Zerebianki here, we're talking about this field to the north there. The Ukrainians have basically been getting closer and closer down this field. They initially were attacking Russian positions, then the Russians attacking Ukrainian positions, and then basically they're just hitting closer and closer to Zerebianki. So it is a slow going, but they're moving towards that, and there's lots of video footage to suggest, shelling and whatnot, as well as in Zerebianki hitting targets within there. And that's all been sort of geolocated there quite usefully, and then hitting positions here as well in Zerebianki 2, shelling and whatnot, shelling and shelling. And there you go. So it is a case of advancing just very slowly, having to deal with minefields and trenches in all of these tree lines. As you can see from the footage, you're having to take out these trenches, slow going, and then you're having to take out minefields as well. Look, these are extensive trench lines. There's no doubt about that. That's going to be difficult. These are all mined, right? You start moving your vehicles towards that, and you are in ATGM range. You are hitting mines. You've got to do so much work to just get up these individual fields to be able to overcome the Russian forces within the trench lines. It's just really demanding stuff. But that's the situation. The question is, will there be a tipping point where the Ukrainians can then suddenly break through in at much quicker rates? Okay. Finally, on to Kherson and Dnipro. Not too much to report about Dnipro, other than I showed you this morning, the Konka River bridge is being hit by Ukrainian first-person view drones. They're hiding boats under that. So if we zoom in to the area, we've got the Antonivsky Bridge going across the Dnipro River, and then we've got the Konka River, which is a kind of tributary along this delta there, that the Ukrainians are advancing up on land here. So they control something like this amount. Definitely, that's from a couple of days ago. They could have more by now. And they are also they've previously sent marine drones to try and hit this bridge. They've shelled it, and they're hitting it with first-person view drones as well, as you can see from the footage here. So turn off that. So they are taking out, sending in drones to just try and take out boats that are being sheltered under the bridge. You can see that there's a truck on its side there as well. Let's take one for the team. And then there's some pretty neat footage of riverine boats being used, Ukrainians using riverine boats and doing a special forces operation in the delta as well. This is some pretty amazing footage here. It's quite a long bit of footage, so I will just go through, and they are firing at positions, and you can see it from drones above, GoPro. just a lot of activity taking place in the area. So you can go and check that footage out. This one's from OSINT Technical. Ukrainian Special Forces riverine operations on the Dnipro River Delta, including a small craft assault on a Russian-held island and multiple first-person view loitering munition strikes on Russian boats. I didn't show you that. I'd get it sort of taken off or whatever. Here it is there. That's been geolocated to that point. I'm just trying to work out exactly where that would be. So part of that footage has been geolocated here. We'll whack that in on my map and see where that activity is taking place. And we find that that is, as I say, further to the south. So these kind of contested islands, that's where they're fighting. So there are still little positions on these islands. I don't know whether there's much to speak of in terms of um, buildings and whatnot. You can see there are a few places, little fishing settlements, no doubt. So they are operating special forces missions around there, as you can see from that footage. Anyway, that's the situation. So not a crazy amount to report, but there's the potential worry of certain Russian gains around. No massive Ukrainian gains that we can see, a little bit around Klishchivka, but that's not to say there aren't gains. There quite often are gains, even on Andrew Perpetua's map, but they're usually gains into grey areas, into the grey zone between the two defensive line, or the Russian control line and the Ukrainian control line. And that large grey area, the Ukrainians will then eat into that and consolidate defense and control of those areas in the grey zone, but it won't reflect in any changes to the Russian defensive lines quite often. So just to explain that situation. Anyway, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate all your support. Take care. I'll speak to you soon. Toodle pips.